I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Andy Hunthausen. Commissioner Rolfe here. Commissioner Payne is around. She should be here any moment. We have Roger Baltz, Chief Administrative Officer, Jenny Chambers, our Director of Public Works, and Deputy Taylor's up here, right, in Augusta, stationed in Augusta. And I got that right, didn't I?
Yep, you did.
Good. Okay, we'll introduce others as we go along here, but welcome everyone. It is our regular government day in Augusta, March 8th, 2024, and we'll start with, we've done introduction, we'll start with reports, and it just so happens, Deputy Taylor, that you're first on the list. So, how are things going in Augusta?
They are actually going pretty good. As we were talking about, things are starting to move around a little bit more. Starting to see some people coming into town, a little more traffic, so still be another month or so, I'd imagine, before it actually starts happening. The only thing I really have to report, and I've got a lot of questions about this, is about Robert Pivac, also known as Duke. So he was trespassed from state land. He then moved onto Elk Colony property and was subsequently trespassed from that property. He has now moved on. So when I spoke to him last, he had his trailer towed out of there by a third party, and he said he was going to be staying in the Great Falls area. So that was the question most that I got asked about, is where is he, because they were concerned he was going to pop up again, you know, somewhere around town or back over at the school or something like that again. So as far as I know at this point, he's nowhere around here. He's supposed to be staying in the Great Falls. So, so I guess that's good news for a lot of people.
We're sitting here.
How's it going? Anyways, other than that, I don't have much. Did you notice anything out of the ordinary? Anything not right? Continue. Send me a text, give me a call, let me know. And Carol, we're still working on your problem over there. I think we've got a partial solution going on. So looks like we've got about 14 dogs that they've now decided to give up. So we'll get those dogs out of there as soon as possible. And
They're safe too, though.
yeah, it's a start. That's all I can say at this point. So,
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
could I just maybe suggest, we were hoping to experiment with.
Yes, I just was jumping in to do that. Sorry, thank you. So my fault. I'll explain this, I should have explained at the outset, but there was a new law passed by the legislature this last session, and by June, coming up here, we have to record all of our meetings, videotape all of our meetings, and so we're going to start changing the format, and I didn't explain it to you, but we're going to start having people come to the podium, the speakers, and introduce ourselves for the record, and then as people want to speak from the audience, as long as Betsy gives us the okay that she can see everyone, we're just going to have people state their name so that we know who is speaking for the record. We have to have all of these posted within 5 days of our meeting, online, and all of that, so it's just a new requirement by the legislature. So you didn't know that, you're fine unless we have questions for Deputy Taylor. Any questions for Deputy Taylor? All right, perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So everyone else knows the scoop here, and Jenny's already practiced, I think. So.
But I apologize. I'm sorry, I was late. I was talking to John Cobb's wife.
Okay.
You know, one of my old friends from years ago. Sorry.
All right. Thank you,
I
Commissioner.
apologize.
All right, we're on to Public Works report. Jenny Chambers.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Jenny Chambers, Louisville County Public Works Director. Yeah, we've done the same type of change at the Lincoln Government Day, so I've got a little bit of practice before we got to Augusta. A few updates for you guys from Public Works. So as you know, with the weather the way it is, we're kind of in between seasons. So it's a crazy time of year between snow season and spring season, and we want to start grading here pretty soon because we get a lot of folks asking when we're going to go out and start grading the gravel roads. But the ground is still frozen in the morning, and then in the afternoon it gets way too muddy with still the spring runoff and the spring thaw. So in between seasons, so give us a little bit of time on allowing the weather to do what it needs to do so we can have our spring and summer work underway here pretty soon. Lewis gave an update just about the interior roads in town. They're in actually pretty good shape for the winter with the freeze thaw and impacts from some of the snow. And there's a couple small potholes that will have to get patched, so they are on our radar. So just know that we're aware of that. Upcoming for the spring summer season, just to give you kind of a forecast of what we've got planned maybe in the area. We are going to do the middle 6 miles of Sun Canyon Road is going to receive new gravel and dust abatement. We're trying to evaluate what the time frame is for Valley Sand and Gravel to get the haul of the material to us up here in order to do that work. And we're shooting for April timeframe, if we get decent weather and decent time frame on that. So we're just kind of sitting and watch the weather on that. So that'll be good. And we're also going out to bid just for 20,000 tons of supply for gravel up here in the Augusta country for other roads. And then we're just working on finalizing our budget for the lower 6 miles of canyon. That will be a budget request for fiscal year 25 budget cycle. So that will then eventually complete all of Sun Canyon. We have to break that up into 3 phases because it's an 18-mile stretch, and so 6 miles, 6 miles, and 6 miles. So after next year, we should hopefully be back to the beginning on Sun Canyon Road. Want to give a little bit of update. All of this is dependent upon our resources. We are down a couple district operator, equipment operators in the road department. So our Lincoln district operator's position's been open for about 9 months now. We're having a hard time getting that position filled. And then over in Wolf Creek, our district operator is going to retire the first part of April. So we're getting that position posted as well. So we're going to essentially maybe be down 2 equipment operators, and the ones that are really important to us are the ones in the districts. And then we have to kind of backfill from Helena with staff that then, just continue to expand our resources and the impacts across the workforce. So just be aware of that. But if you know of anybody or anybody that's CDLs or that wants to stay kind of within the Augusta area even, the position in Wolf Creek might be something they would be interested in, or even the one in Lincoln. So it's trying to spread the word on that. A couple other updates that I wanted to share. So as you guys might have remembered, we in the Public Works applied with the Commissioner's support of a very large match for a FEMA grant, a Flood Emergency Management Act grant for the next phase maybe of that mitigation plan for flooding within the Augusta area. And it was going to be potentially for that levee that would actually, when it stopped flooding necessarily, but it might reduce flooding into Augusta. So we applied for the grant. We were not successful with the grant. At the time, it didn't meet the criteria on the grant submittal because the county did not have an approved hazard mitigation plan approved by FEMA. So we missed that grant opportunity, but we're gonna watch for the next one after the post-disaster grant opportunities get done. So with all that flooding that occurred in Park County outside of Livingston and in Yellowstone, most of the FEMA money for the state of Montana went to those post-disaster projects, and they're hoping to free up some additional money this summer that will reapply based upon that grant and see where things shake out. Our DES coordinator, Disaster Emergency Services Coordinator, Kyle, was supposed to be here today. He'll probably come up to another future government day, but he is making progress on that hazard mitigation plan for the county. It's going to be a regional hazard mitigation plan that the county participated in. It is currently getting reviewed through the state DES office, Disaster Emergency Services Office, and the end of this March, it'll get submitted to FEMA for a 45-day review, and then back to the county to get the commissioner's approval of that. So very shortly, in the next couple months, there should be a countywide hazard mitigation plan based upon that FEMA regional approach. Yes, Commissioner?
Sorry to interrupt, but could you tell us a little bit how big you say this is region, it's not our county, it's a region. Give us the parameters of the region so we have an idea as to how far we're gonna have to spread this.
Chairman, Commissioner Payne, I don't know if I'm the right person to talk about the Disaster Emergency Services Hazard Mitigation Plan. All I know is that from the county perspective, we were asked to provide what our mitigation approaches would be to the DES office, to the county DES office. that went into this larger plan. I think it's all of the western region, as far as, that's not necessarily what we have to compete to for the funding, that is just, this is the hazards that exist within the western Montana for potential flooding. So we're all gonna maybe experience earthquakes, or we're all gonna experience potential railroad derailments or things like that from a hazard mitigation standpoint. So I think that's just kind of the general plan. But then the pot of money, if there's any funding in the future, will be, of course, probably statewide or even national-wide at that point for competition. So just continue to try to be competitive with moving those things forward. So,
Speaking of the
devil.
The devil.
So, I will turn it over to Kyle and just ask him to talk a little bit about the, and I'll give you a little bit of a preface so you know what you're talking about. I gave them an update on our grant application that Public Works submitted for the next phase of the floodplain mitigation for the Augusta area. Indicated that it was not approved because we didn't have a county-approved hazard mitigation plan through FEMA. And so there were some questions about what does that hazard mitigation plan entail? How are we joining the regional component associated with that? Which regions does that encompass, and then kind of the next steps? So I'll turn over to Kyle.
If you'd introduce
And then I'll
yourself for the
finish my
record, Kyle,
update.
welcome.
Thank you, I'm sorry I'm late, had to make a few stops. Actually, one was a phone call about this, so. Kyle Sturgill-Simon, Emergency Manager for Lewis and Clark County. Yes, so originally the plan, there's two major mitigation funds that are available through the state. One is available only within the state, locally. It happens whenever we have a presidentially declared disaster in a county somewhere in the state. We were hoping to get some funds from that fund. Unfortunately, fortunately, we haven't had a presidentially declared disaster impact our own county for quite a while. Unfortunately, when it does impact another county, they get preference on the funds. And so the last couple of times it became available, those counties impacted have maxed out what they could ask for, so there wasn't any available for us to ask for. The other fund that we then applied for is nationally competitive, and that requires that we have the mitigation plan updated and approved at the time of submittal. Right now we're doing our update, and one of the hiccups of doing the regional plan updates, kind of like in school, the group project, it only gets submitted when everybody has done their part. There's a couple of other counties that have had some revisions that they've had to do, not for us, other counties, so that's kind of slowed the process down a little bit. The call I took today, because I want to make sure I had the most up-to-date information, is that they did get those in, and so the whole regional plan, which is for all of western Montana, is being reviewed at the state level right now. Usually that takes about 45 days. After that, it then goes to FEMA for review, and then that takes about 45 days. We're expecting it to take a little bit longer just because of the size of the plan. It's about 14 counties included in one plan as opposed to individual county plans. So probably early summer would be our best bet for that. That being said, mitigation is great in that these funds, the nationally available grant comes around every year. So once we have our plan approved and adopted, we'll be eligible to apply for that. And then on the unfortunate side of disaster and emergency management is they do happen fairly frequently. And so the other bit to it is the funds that are only competitive within the state, we usually have availability for that grant every other year or so. So we'll keep pursuing it that way.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Looks like, there's a seat over here for you if you'd like to join us.
Perfect.
And we may have more questions for you. Anybody have questions for Kyle right now? This is the Public Works report actually going on. You're in the middle, we brought you in the middle of that report to answer some questions.
Okay.
Anybody have questions for Director Chambers?
Maybe you could just summarize all of what you just said. How far are we from maybe the next positive step in flood control?
So I think some of the next steps are we need to get that regional hazard mitigation plan approved and adopted by the county probably later this summer. And then once we get that plan in place, then we can turn around and reapply for whatever funding comes available at the next grant cycles. And we were gonna watch those very closely and then apply for those. So we're as close as we are in order to get a grant application that's approved, and we can move forward with some project planning.
And
So
this was
it's
the
really
one-
competitive, you know, we're gonna look at our grant application we already submitted. I'm gonna ask Kyle to maybe take a look at it as well, to see if we can strengthen anything that maybe we might have missed on the first submittal. Cause the more times we look at it, we might make some improvements, so that maybe I'll get a better chance to get some grant funding when we actually do get some eligibility to get it evaluated through that competitive scoring process.
And you weren't here when we talked about this, but we're recording now. We have to record for our new requirements. So if someone's gonna speak, we'll recognize you, and then if you stand and say your name, so we can get it on the recording, we have to have a good
Wait,
recording.
do that right now.
That would be grand if you would do that.
Sue Taylor, from Augusta.
Thank you, Sue. Very, very much appreciated.
Good job, Susan.
Thank you. So we're gonna work really as a partner on this with DES office and continue to look for grant opportunities to move things forward. And then I have just one more update I wanted to provide, and then we'll be happy to answer whatever questions else exist. But another activity that we've been coordinating with the Montana Department of Transportation on was the Augusta community's request for the traffic calming evaluation on Main Street, especially during the seasonal time frame when you guys get a major traffic corridor with everybody going up to Glacier National Park. So have been talking quite a bit with MDT on those efforts, and the district traffic engineer for the Great Falls District is looking at tentatively planning to conduct a field visit the week of June 10th through the 14th. So that it's in that summer season to get some traffic data and information. And just was checking with us to make sure that was an okay time frame to observe and get that traffic information. So once he does that field visit, does an analysis and gets some traffic information, then he said it'll approximately take 6 to 8 weeks to write up his findings and recommendations, and then we'll have that report based upon their analysis of that work. So it is making progress. They're gonna come do that review in June, and then probably later in the summer we'll have that report, and then from there we'll have a pretty tangible document that can evaluate what could be done, does anything need to be done, and then allow us to help look for grant opportunities to get some maybe traffic controlling devices. Doing a little bit of research from Public Works, there's some pop-up devices that might be possible, where you can just put them in place during the summer season and take them down in the winter. That allows for snow removal and things like that to occur. So there might be some possibilities as we move forward, but we really need to see that evaluation from MDT's district traffic engineer before we move forward with anything on that end. Any
Thank you.
questions on that, Sue?
Please,
Do I have to stand up again?
if you would, just,
I just wanted to clarify, because last time we talked, it was kind of like, we're hoping that they would do an actual study. Is that what you mean by the evaluation?
Sue, yeah, he said conduct a field visit, and then he'll have a memorandum after that documents findings and recommendations. And usually it's a pretty detailed report. When we ask for speed studies or other traffic evaluations, it's a pretty detailed report. They look at maybe past traffic data, past vehicle accidents or accidents that might occurred. And then, of course, the ADT count, the average daily traffic count based upon his field visit and data collection, maybe the width of the road, things from a safety design standpoint that might need to be modified. So I'm thinking it's gonna be pretty, something that can be done in a reasonable time frame, but still give us some good data and information after he gets done with his review and field visit. Yep, Brian?
Brian Moody, Augusta resident. Did you hear anything about the light on Main Street? Remember I talked to you about the street light?
Yeah, Brian, and I got that information and I had one of my staff contact Northwest Energy. So is it still?
It's out more than it's on. It was about 50-50.
Okay.
So it's got a short or something, and it's the light this side of the game check.
Yeah, I know, we
Okay.
sent it, we did some follow-up emails and stuff like as well, so it's nothing the county can do, but we're gonna still try to spearhead that. I'll send a,
So I
ask you to
didn't
send
know
a
that that
reminder.
was Northwest Energy's responsibility, because I can call them too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's who we ended up tailing it, and it was Northwest Energy's responsibility based upon that, like, okay,
Sure.
good, we'll hit it from both angles then.
That's right, thank you.
Thank you.
The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
That's right, and I know.
Thank you very much. No other questions for Director Chambers? Okay. And I don't think Kyle's here, obviously. Kyle, Navin,
No.
Forest
Different
Service.
table. Okay.
Different Kyle. So no report from the Forest Service today. We do have friends from Public Health here today. So I'll let you introduce yourselves and for the record, and we'll go from there. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, and Augusta community residents. I'm Sarah Sandow. I'm the Community Health Promotion Division Administrator. So that's a very long title to say that that division of the health department is home visiting. So we have home visitors who go into the homes of new families, as well as WIC, our Women, Infant, Children program, to provide food benefits to new families as well as the prevention team, which includes tobacco prevention, cancer prevention, suicide prevention, behavioral health. So today, what the health department is starting to do is kind of build a campaign each month around a different health topic. And that will include a Helena IR article, it will include radio interviews, we'll do some social media posts on our Lewis and Clark Public Health Facebook, and then it will include a monthly presentation as well to these meetings. So February was Heart Disease Prevention Month, and so that's what I'm here to talk about today. And so I do have the Helena IR article too here if anyone's interested. I know you have to pay every time you read an article in there, so I have some printed if anyone wants some about heart disease as well. It has a really beautiful story about some community residents in there, so I highly recommend reading it. Amber Johnson, our communications coordinator, is the one who wrote it. So heart disease is the first and stroke is the fifth leading cause of death in the country, state, and county. So it's a really prevalent issue that we have. Every year, $214 billion is spent by the healthcare systems on these diseases. And the prevalence of heart disease among Lewis and Clark County residents has decreased actually from 9% between 2011 and 2013 to 7% in 2017 to 2019. So as a community, we're really working on some efforts to make sure that we can keep our residents healthy when possible. Between 2014 and 2019, there were approximately 6,185 heart disease and stroke related hospital admissions, and 12,755 emergency department visits, and that was for Lewis and Clark County residents specifically. So it's something we're seeing in our county as well. So we start with prevention when possible. What does prevention for heart disease look like? Either not starting to use tobacco or quitting if you are using. There's some great resources. Next month, the topic is tobacco cessation. So we're gonna have our tobacco prevention health educator, Karin, come. She'll talk about the quit line. She'll talk about some local, not super local for you all because it's Helena, but there's some local groups in Helena, and if she hears a big need of, a group happening in Augusta, that's something that she'd be happy to work on too, to figure out maybe some solutions.
Sarah, your tobacco cessation, does that include vaping?
It does,
Oh,
yes.
so good.
that includes vaping and any nicotine. Yep, so it includes cigars as well. So I know sometimes we go straight to cigarettes, but vaping is more prevalent now. So get moving. So aiming for at least 30 to 60 minutes of daily just physical activity. We immediately go to the gym in our brains, but really it means gardening, walking, getting outside, whatever feels right for you and your body and makes you feel healthy and good as well. Winter's hard. So also that's something we could talk about too, is like, what does winter physical activity look like? It can look like a lot of things. Eating a heart healthy diet, that can also just a variety of foods, making sure we get our fruits, vegetables, whole grains. Maintaining a healthy weight, that's also key. Getting quality sleep, again, not always easy. I don't know if anyone has any kids or animals at home that makes them get up in the middle of the night, but how can we get closer to that 8 hours of sleep uninterrupted? Managing our stress, and again, that could look like a variety of things. That could look like talking to your friends and family members, but trying to manage that stress. And then getting regular health screening tests, because we know it can change quickly, so talking to your primary care doc, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, type 2 diabetes screenings, those are the type of screenings we're talking about. And then taking steps to prevent infections, because infections can lead to higher rates as well. So that's all prevention. Now, sometimes prevention is great and works, and sometimes you need intervention. So making sure that you have a provider that is helping you track and helping you get those screening tests as well. And then there are some groups in Helena, for example, the Health Coaches for Hypertension Control at St. Peter's. It's an 8-week program. There's tobacco cessation courses in Helena. There's also cardiac rehab. Again, so making sure that we're looking at prevention, but sometimes prevention isn't enough. So making sure we have our doctors in place. So that is our heart disease specifically. Then I'll pass it to Melissa Baker, but any questions on heart disease before I pass it to Melissa?
Thank you,
Pass to
Sarah.
Ms. Baker.
Thank you.
Hello, commissioners and administrators, and like Sarah said, welcome to all the residents of Augusta here. I'm Melissa Baker. I work at Lewis and Clark Public Health. I've been there for 16 years, doing, the Montana Cancer Screening Program. And the program provides specifically, we provide funding for women who are uninsured or underinsured, and who meet specific income guidelines. So we're looking at people who are on the lower end of the income scale, to provide free mammograms and pap tests. And if anything comes back abnormal, then we also provide diagnostics for women who are in our program and who actually get diagnosed with cancer. We have a special Medicaid program that we're able to get them into that will cover their treatment. So the state part of our program, the funding comes from the state. They say that there are several hundred women in Lewis and Clark County who qualify for our program. So that means that they are uninsured or underinsured. They meet the income guidelines and also the age guidelines. We pay for cervical cancer screening starting at age 21, and for breast cancer screening starting at age 40. But we've been having a bit of a difficult time reaching all of those women and trying to get them into our program. So if anybody has any brainstorm, any ideas on how we can reach more people, make sure that people are getting screened, we're very open to receiving that feedback. We do not have funding to provide colorectal cancer screening, but we do like to provide education around that. March happens to be colorectal cancer awareness month. I'm also part of the Montana Cancer Coalition, and I lead the early detection implementation team. And this month we have a focus, again, because it is colorectal cancer screening awareness month. We are doing a statewide campaign with coffee sleeves. We ordered 50,000 sleeves that will be distributed to coffee shops statewide. And so they just have a little bit of information on the importance of screening. They have a QR code that can be scanned, and then it'll take them to the state Montana Cancer Control website for more information. It is recommended, it used to be recommended that people start screening for colorectal cancer at age 50, but in the last few years that's been lower to age 45. So anybody age 45 and older should be getting some sort of colorectal cancer screening, whether it's...
Not for a few more years.
Okay. So we just recommend that people talk to their doctor about what screening might work for them, because you can do annual tests that you just do at home. You can also, of course, do the colonoscopy, which is considered kind of the gold standard of testing, but of course is more invasive and time-consuming and so forth. And again, like I said, talk to providers as far as also your breast and cervical cancer screening recommendations, find out what your risk factors are, and how often they recommend you get screened. Also wanted to mention really quickly that we are looking at trying to get St. James mobile mammography to come to Augusta sometime this summer. And the thing is they need to have, it's a very large vehicle, and they need to have a large space to park and turn around. So I'm not sure if anybody who is familiar with Augusta knows if there is a nice big place where they would be able to park. But we want to make it a whole event where I would come up and meet people and provide some education, and they would come and provide the mammograms. And I'm not sure what else we might be able to include with that, but
How about the high school parking lot?
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, the high school,
That
up at the school.
okay, that's great feedback,
Yeah,
thank you.
for sure.
Okay, that's really good to know, thank you so much for that information. So I think that pretty much covers my program. If anybody has any questions about cancer screening, let me know.
Any questions?
Lloyd Allen, I just want to mention that Augusta's and the connection to Helena there's kind of a wall between us. And if you wanted to put information out, the local paper in Fairfield covers this area, and they don't charge.
Oh, really? Oh, that's good to know.
So you might check with them to see what they can do, and that's one of the hardest problems in Augusta is getting the information out.
Exactly.
Cause and it used to be, you had the paper, but there ain't no papers really anymore.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you got the Great Falls Tribune, but that's kinda almost a half joke, but.
Okay, so the Fairfield, what is it, Fairfield Sun-Times or something?
Right.
Is that what it's?
And then also,
Okay.
actually, the Canta from Shoto also covers, some people coming to
okay.
Augusta, send some in here, so.
Oh, wonderful.
And the school newsletter, that's,
Oh, okay.
And we have the breeze.
Augusta Breeze.
well, right.
We have the breeze.
Melissa,
Yeah.
So
I've
just
got
saying-
all of those
No, but
contacts,
it's-
I'll send
it
them to
really
Amber.
is.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Thank you,
Oh, that'd be
Mr.
great.
Allen. Yeah, Betsy has
Oh,
all that stuff.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Oh,
I can send
appreciate
all
that.
those to Amber.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, I appreciate all that info.
Thank you both, and I should have said prior to calling you up, that, as you probably can see, as our list of reports that we normally have, we've added the health department, so they're gonna be coming and joining us each month and have a different topic, so like, Sarah said, next month will be, tobacco cessation, so.
Cool.
Thank you for coming,
Thank
appreciate you
you.
being here,
Thank you.
the information's great. Another connection, so that's good. All right, we are at other business, and here I'll offer the mic back to you if you have anything else to add, or if you want to tell us a little bit more about DES, Kyle.
Sure.
And if you'd introduce yourself for the record again as you get up
Take a
there.
stand.
Yes, please.
All right, Kyle Sturgill-Simon, Emergency Manager for Lewis and Clark County. There was one thing that I wanted to talk about. So early in February in Helena, we held a tabletop exercise. We try to do them at least annually. We're actually on schedule to do a little more this year. And it was for flooding, flooding awareness, and then flooding response for one day, and then flooding recovery for the next day. And we included Augusta in the scenario.
Kyle,
Yes.
could you give me a definition of what you mean by table talks? I mean, what?
Thanks. Yes, tabletop exercise. So in our line of work, there's different levels of exercising where we take the plans that we have for emergency
Exercising, are you
preparedness.
talking about push-ups on a table?
And we exercise the plan, as it were. So for the tabletop, we don't actually jump into trucks and run off and put sandbags out, but we talk about who has authorities for what, who's designated for which tasks and things along those lines. So tabletop just meaning we don't really get up and move around a lot, but we still exercise the plan.
It's a train.
Yeah, training. Yep. Thanks.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Maybe
I
everybody
appreciate
else
that.
in this room knew that.
We have some jargon in the field that I slip into.
At least it wasn't an acronym.
I do my very best with the acronyms. So we incorporated Augusta in the scenario for this. It was a flooding exercise, so the scenario was that we had a lot of snowpack in the mountains, and then the Weather Service was telling us to expect heavy, heavy rain. And at first it hit down in the south end of the county, and we had some dams that were starting to fill up, and we had some creeks that were overflowing, and it impacted the water treatment center. And then the scenario evolved to say, hey, now the Weather Service is saying that tomorrow, the Bob's gonna get most of this. And so we were asking everybody, you know, where would you get information for knowing where the creek levels were, and what sort of expectation for timeline are we gonna look at for when the water's gonna raise. And so I thought I'd bring this up because we didn't include Augusta in the Helena-based exercise in order to leave you out. We did it more to sort of highlight to a lot of the groups in the Helena area that they had to think about how they would extend their services as far north to the part of the county as they could, while also supporting things that were happening in Helena. So it was a good conversation. Several of the groups were very cognizant of the fact that they'd be stretched really thin if they were being based out of Helena and trying to provide services in the Augusta area. And so we had conversations about, you know, where we may be based out of, what sort of force multipliers and leveraging that they could apply in terms of like either having people commute out here during a disaster, or if they would have to find housing. It was a good conversation. I brought it up because I wanted to offer, if the Augusta area was interested in doing something very specific to Augusta, and then just leaving all the Helena people out. I would very much be willing to do that locally. We've got connections with your fire department. Our floodplain manager, I'm sure, would be more than willing to come out and just have those conversations for the very local side of things, so that people know the emergency operations plan for the county, where is it, how do we fit into it, which groups that we could call upon for mutual aid, things along those lines. So I've got cards on me if anybody's interested, and if you have any questions, let me know.
Kyle, just to add to that, I had the opportunity to attend the training, the tabletop exercise, so it was great, thank you. And one of the things that was very obvious, and I think it's something that I'd like you to speak to a little bit, is just the breadth of folks that are brought in during an emergency. We had a whole bunch of public works people there. We had, of course, we were at the hospital, health, others. There's just tons of different folks brought in to not only an exercise like this, but in the real thing, there'd be quite the plan talks about this, and if you just give people kind of a picture.
Thank you for that. So again, it's like I said, we split it up into 2 different days. We had a response day and a recovery day. And responding to a flood event is what you may imagine: public works with infrastructure, sheriff's office with evacuations, floodplain with doing damage assessments and things along those lines. But we also wanted to make sure that we were incorporating all of our local partners that get involved. We had COAD there, which is the Community Organizations Active During Disaster. That's where you have your United Way, faith-based groups, local charities, funding management groups, things along those lines. Red Cross, public health, you know, when you have to start telling people about whether or not drinking water out of their well is safe or not, things along those lines. We had the hospital in case we needed to talk about, you know, greater impact on the healthcare system. Oh man, we had a lot of people. But something that we emphasize is that, you know, disaster, it can be a day, a really bad day, but the recovery can be weeks, months, kinds of things. And there's many, many groups that are involved or have things to bear. And so we focused on actually having all the folks that are involved in the response, knowing who they're gonna be handing things off to for the recovery, so that it was a little bit more seamless, so that everybody knew what was going on, how many homes may have been damaged, how many displaced citizens, how many people evacuated, things along those lines. So I think we had over 30 people for both days, which was pretty great to see.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. How about question? Oh, sorry, question?
I have a
Please,
question,
Commissioner.
Kyle. These folks were front page, you know, they were right here when there was all these floods in Augusta, and it wasn't your standard flood. It had to do with many of the situations you talked to. First of all, were you part of our little happy group when that was going on?
So,
Or was that
interestingly
before?
enough, I was with state DES, so I was with the state level disaster emergency services, but I was on the mitigation team, so I didn't partake in any of the.
So the recovery part? Mitigation, I mean, did you?
Recovery was in our bureau, but I was on the mitigation side. Does I didn't get any field work for the Augusta flood.
Okay. And, oh, we gave a boatload of money to the sheriff's department so they could have this fancy new command vehicle for use in emergencies. And of course, I'm thinking, you know, we've got some lunatic running around up here or there's a fire. But this is use of the command vehicle, part of the planning for this so that we have a radio or a, so there's a computer system that is talking to everybody and everybody knows where it is and that they can, I mean, is that part of what your plan is?
Yes.
And would you talk about it?
I sure can. In fact, I just recently spoke to the sheriff's office about it. Autumn, my deputy, and I were gonna be part of the training for operating that vehicle, so that we can use it along with the sheriff's
Leo
office.
said I couldn't drive it.
Well, I was told that I would be able to drive it, but not unsupervised. You know, for a little bit about how that sort of equipment comes in most useful, say there's an incident that happens in Augusta. The first thing I always think about is, okay, where are we gonna put people to work the incident? Well, this space comes to mind, right? But we also don't want to use a space that could have a community impact for the good. And so if we're bringing in those stakeholders and community partners that are coming in and gonna do whatever assistance they can provide to citizens, if they need a place, well, that'd be great if they can use this space instead of us having to. And we pull in the mobile command vehicle and work out of it instead. So communication-wise, it's gonna have a radio repeater, it's gonna have satellite internet, it's gonna have a cache of radios, it'll be connected to the network. I've been in talks with our GIS department about actually being able to do map updates from their office in Helena, so that it updates right here at the command vehicle or wherever it's set up to be able to do, you know, public information releases and things along those lines. So it helps us be a little bit more self-sustained and not have to take away from something that could be going towards helping the community.
I'm also, we are very used to using our cell phones. Those of us who don't live in more rural communities, many of these folks don't have cell phone service. And will this command vehicle deal with that? If their landlines are down, and how then will you communicate with these folks out in the hills on the ranches and will be impacted, but they don't know?
It's a good question. So the command vehicle will assist for communications for those that are responding to it, so the incident command staff. It won't necessarily extend communications out to the area. My approach in those kinds of situations is I like to utilize everything. Radio, social media, the newspapers, word of mouth. I go to the bar and just tell people to spread the word. I joke, but that's actually a pretty
That's
powerful
true.
way
It is.
of getting the word out. I've been in incidents, so I was part of the incident command staff for the Yellowstone flood for Park County when that happened. And public health was amazing for public information. They already had the avenues that they usually use to get the word out. And so they used it for getting all the disaster information out. And they utilized trap lines. So that's kind of an approach where you put out printed materials where you know people are going to congregate. So it'll be a grocery store, a gas station. It can even be just on a board at a popular four-way stop, or you know where traffic converges, that kind of thing. So it's kind of, you can never cover all the bases, but you try to cover as many of them as you can with a consistent message.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you. How about questions for Kyle? Anyone? Any questions for Kyle?
Lloyd, how again? I was just wondering, when you're looking at this, do you look at the area and look at the potential hazards in the area when you're doing your planning?
We do, yes. So the hazard mitigation plan that we just updated, we pulled in community partners. Actually, wasn't with the county at the time, I was with the state. So I was involved in those conversations, but from the state side. County Public Works, county planning, actually everybody that we could get to the meeting.
I take care, I'm a dam tender for nylon, and that's a part of the Department, DNRC, okay? And they've actually done a study on if that ruptures and it sends the wall of water down and it happens to be full, where the water goes, it actually comes through Augusta at about 15 feet deep. I mean, it's, that, up there, that is honestly a bigger hazard than most people realize. If the dam on the north side ruptures and goes into Willow Creek, and Willow Creek is full, and it will cause it to rupture, then Great Falls is in trouble. I mean, it's big, we're talking major. So I was just wondering how wide you're looking at the potential headaches.
So those ones, luckily, DNRC is one of our partners for that plan, so they give us all the high hazard dams in the county, and then we incorporate that into. We don't put the flood inundation maps in the plan, per se, but we do
But I think
have
you
them
really should.
available to
Because
us.
if you look at the flood, you know, I actually looked at it, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, I didn't, like I said, I think Augusta's like 15 feet, and then it goes down, and it there's kind of a bottleneck there, further down below the Y, and it gets up to like 21 feet deep. I mean, and then it goes back into the Sun River, and it spreads back out. So I mean,
Yeah.
there's information there that they really need to be able to look at if they had to.
So on the high hazard dam side, we incorporate
That
what
is
the
a-
risks are, and we do put that in the mitigation plan. The inundation maps, we don't usually put into a public plan for security reasons. That's usually more to pertain with the larger dams on the larger reservoirs, but it
I was
definitely
just
gets
thinking that
incorporated.
if you had a rupture, you'd need to know where it potentially could go, so you don't put your camp or whatever in that way.
Yeah,
And for those
unfortunately,
that don't know, that's an earthen dam.
Yeah.
there's a lot of seems to have been a popular thing to put campsites directly downstream of dams about 50 years ago. Ever noticed that? We're dealing with that for Wolf Creek Craig Fire District right now. But it's a great point. We're in pretty regular contact with the DNRC Dam Safety Group, and they let us know. So for a high hazard dam, they have their inspection requirements, and if there's any deviations, they inform us so that we're aware of them as well. And so we're in pretty good touch with them on that.
Don't worry, they're checking that dam so much.
Yeah.
Well, there was in the I don't know, it was 50s or 60s, but the Willow Creek Dam burst and it did flood Great Falls.
Yeah, 64.
Okay, thank you.
64, that's me.
Yeah, it was, this is not when it's gonna, or if maybe that could happen. Probably will, could be in our lifetime, and
Not only did that dam go, but the Gibson Dam overtopped 10
Yep.
feet.
really.
And I had heard 4 to 6, I hadn't heard 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought I remember reading
Yeah,
10.
6 feet
It
is
was
the
quite a
highest that
bit.
I'd heard.
Okay.
That's still
That's a lot of water.
That's a lot of water. That's right.
I was standing at the base of
Spent a
that
lot of
thinking
money
about 6 feet of water coming over.
Preparing for that one,
Yeah.
here back in the 70s.
Did you guys know that there's
Brian?
a senior center?
I'm just,
Brian Moody,
yes, thank you.
just for you guys' information, we have a table over here for the seniors, and if you wanna leave some information over there.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
So each time we speak,
Well,
Brian Moody.
so someone has to keep track, keep minutes,
Okay,
and
yeah.
when someone's watching this on TV, we have to have a record that people can
But
follow.
each time we need to.
So if you stayed home next month and we all were talking, you go, who the heck was that talking? We need to make sure that those that might watch it on later.
Right, thanks.
That's kind of our standard, but, and we're practicing now, so we
Right.
go official in June, we gotta really be ready, so
Right.
I'm trying to get us, cause as you saw in the beginning, I missed a few steps myself, like, just.
So when you guys talk, are you guys supposed to say your name and?
Well, I think we introduced ourselves, and we're in the same spots, and we are running the
Okay.
show here,
I
so
just asked.
we're probably pretty good.
Okay, okay.
And that was Brian again.
Brian Moody, that's where the kid.
Thank you, Brian.
Betsy Kirkby, Communications Coordinator for Lewis and Clark County.
Yes.
I think if we eventually, adopt a stance where people come up and talk at the podium, once you've announced yourself once,
Should do
you
it.
shouldn't need
Okay.
to introduce yourself again. You would be on the video and people would know. Right now, this is focused forward.
Right.
So I'm maybe not catching everybody over here. And so it's nice when you introduce yourself again because that part is just audio.
So I didn't know, Brian Moody, I didn't know if we were supposed to reset up so that we have that camera taking in everybody.
We may, and I think she can see everyone pretty, almost.
Right now, I'm focusing
Okay.
on you guys. This is kind of an experiment.
Yeah.
It's a really big room.
Yeah.
So I'm closer than I initially wanted to be today, to try and accommodate the sound.
Right, and as well, we'll probably try to say I'd like to speak and then be recognized. That's the other piece of
Robert's
that.
Rules of Order.
And so,
So we're gonna change it from raising our hand?
no, raise your hand, then I'll call on you,
Right.
rather than we all just jump in and
Right.
answer each other's questions and all that. Like we have in the past, it's been pretty casual. We're trying to tighten it up a little bit, formalize it a little bit for this purpose so that we can track what's happening. It's a little bit of a pain, but it's what we've been required to do by the
Right.
legislature, so
Gonna do what
we're
we
trying to
do.
follow the rules that have been given to us.
Right.
So, yes. Any other questions for Kyle? Thank you very much
Thank you,
for being
Pat.
here, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We have a couple other things in other business. One that Roger handed me, we checked on and Commissioner Payne asked about this on the way up here today, as a matter of fact. So we gave the Augusta American Legion a grant through the county, local, and tribal consistency funds that we receive for $22,850 to improve and bury electrical lines at the rodeo grounds. And so that is progressing. There is,
Just a second. What do you mean progressing? Who's doing
I'm
it?
trying to get there, Commissioner.
How many of you know who's
Excuse-
doing the work?
I-
Okay.
Commissioner,
Yeah.
just be patient, please. So
I've had too much
we
fun.
allocated $22,850, and we anticipate awarding the money to do the work coming up in a subrecipient agreement, which we have not taken that step yet. And Ann McCauley, who is our grants director, will be bringing that forward to us in a formal commission meeting for contracts and all of those as soon as that's established, but that's moving forward, she says, anticipates next week. So as soon as we know, we'll pass that word along to folks up here and try and get the word spread around. But that work is going to happen, we hope, this summer anyway. I'm not sure if it's gonna be prior to the rodeo or not, so we can find that out for you as well. But that's progressing, so we did grant that $22,850 for burying those lines, and it will happen. So, there you go. Anything else you wanted to ask or
Those
add
lines-
about that?
Are those lines gonna be flood-proof? You know that rodeo is right down there in the floodplain.
Well, they'll be underground and encased in, they'll be at whatever standard there is out there. All right, so next I'll ask Roger Baltz if he has anything to add for the good of the order. I don't know if you have anything for us, Roger, please.
For the record, my name is Roger Baltz. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for Lewis and Clark County. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Just very briefly, everyone, since the last time we met, the county's been very busy. I know we have had, the county every year has to have a third party come in and perform an audit of our financial operations, and so that has occurred. And they give that audit report to the county commissioners. So if that's of interest of you to know, they come in and take a look at all of the financial operations associated with the county. Very public process, and they've given that report to the county commissioners. And we also produce something called an annual financial report. So those are some administrative processes that happen this time of the year. And springtime is a very busy part of the budget process for county governments in the state of Montana as well. So that is happening. So all of the different departments and elected offices that report to the county commissioners are working right now to review their expenditures, their revenues, and starting to prepare their budgets. So it's an important time of the year. So whether it's Jenny preparing to get estimates together for road projects or repairs, equipment, personnel costs, that's all occurring throughout the year, but there's a special intensity that occurs in the spring, and that leads up to public meetings that are going to be happening in May and June, where the county commissioners will be approving the budgets. And the budgets for the county, some of the largest expenditures we have, as you might expect, are for public safety and for public works. And you hear a lot about that here at these government day meetings. So those are a couple of things that are going on that might be of interest to you. And the only other thing I thought I would just mention very briefly today is you all are probably aware that in the big picture of the state of Montana, there's an awful lot of discussion going on right now regarding property taxes, just the general topic of property taxes. Your county government and your county commissioners are very engaged, paying close attention to those conversations and discussions that are happening. And also you're going to see some additional property tax notices coming out. We think in March they will be taken care of by Amy Reeves on behalf of Lewis and Clark County. And it has to do with a Montana Supreme Court decision that was made regarding levies and how they're calculated by the state, which counties around the state of Montana, the majority of the counties disagreed with. It went to court, and a decision has been made that now is going to result in an additional tax notice going out to property owners, many property owners. So, Mr. Chair, I think that's all I'll just speak to today, just be very brief. There's dozens and dozens of things going on, but the budget process this time of year is really important. This is the time of year when a lot of decisions or recommendations start coming forward for things like repainting the Augusta Community Center, or installing Wi-Fi, which we've just recently done, or funding requests for nonprofit organizations that come to the county commissioners. A lot of that work is happening right now. So, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Roger.
Sure.
Commissioner?
I'm sorry, I need to practice this. I have a question, Chairman, may I ask?
Please,
All
Commissioner.
right. Roger, the annual financial reports that you have been discussing and that we are preparing, are those available online? They are public, it's public information because we are spending taxpayer dollars with these budgets. Are they available online so that that character out there could look at it and say, yes?
Great question, Commissioner. The answer is yes. So, you can find a lot of the county's financial information, including the county's budget and annual financial reports on the county website. If you're not a computer person and don't want to do it that way, you can always contact the county's administrative offices. We have a finance department that has all of these reports in hard copy as well too, if you ever want to take a look at them. They are many, many pages long and have a great deal of intricate detail about financial transactions, but they are available. It's a very public process. Yes, Commissioner.
Thanks, Roger.
Yeah.
Might I comment?
Please.
I hope you all talk to your legislators. The legislature in the last session seemed to think that counties were spending money just willy-nilly, okay, as a first-time commissioner, I found out this commission is limited to last year's budget increased by 3% as averaged over the last 3 years or something like that. They're not given, how deep's your pocket, we're gonna dig everything out of it. No. And so we made this decision, 47 of the 56 counties decided, we are not going to levy the full amount that the Department of Revenue says we should levy, because it goes outside the boundaries of what we're allowed to do. And that is the decision the Supreme Court said, oh, the Department of Revenue can levy however much money they want. This is equalizing school funding. School funding is not put into a pot for schools. It is put into the general fund. So the money, this extra levy, is put into the same pot that the roads and the prisons and all this stuff comes out of. It is not reserved for school funding. So when you talk to your legislators, would you make them understand that this, if it is for schools, fine, put it in a school pot, but don't put it in a general fund, and for crying out loud, don't have a $2 million budget overrun and then we all get $200 back or however much it is. Why couldn't that money have stayed in your pockets?
Thank you,
I
Commissioner.
tend to rant, but it makes me furious when the counties are held up as being the money spenders.
Thank you. Commissioner Ralph, anything you want to add today?
No, I did, to go along with what Commissioner Payne said, I think one of the greatest surprises that I felt, I learned when I became a commissioner, was how fiscally responsible your county finance department is. There are very few local government units that go through the steps that Lewis and Clark County does, and they've done this for many years, where they plan ahead for capital expenditures, and they try very hard to keep your taxes down. And we don't have a lot of emergency spending because there's a lot of planning done. When a department wants to get new equipment, once that's approved by the commission, the money is set aside each year so that it's there and available at the proper time to get the equipment. And I think it's almost, it's the way that we try to spend in our own personal families, and I think you'd be very proud of the way our county finance department and county treasurer's department handles themselves, and you would be very pleased with the way it's done.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it. Our next meeting is on April 12th, right here. So, but prior to adjourning, we want to ask if there's any public comment and anything that's under our jurisdiction that isn't on the agenda. So, yes, ma'am, please.
Sue Taylor, Augusta. Just a question about, maybe this is budget related since you're talking about that. Do I have to stay standing? Do you prefer that? And this has probably been visited before, but is there any possibility of having someone from the DMV come here once a month-ish so that we can come here to do our licenses? I just made the 160-mile round trip, and you know, the drive is awesome in most weather, but it's just a lot for, I mean, because of past experiences, I just basically bag the day, which means the sole proprietor doesn't make much money when you bag the day to go get a license plate. So I just thought maybe if there's any way to make that I don't know, look into it, if it's a possibility. I don't know if that's your decision to make or the treasurer's or how that works, but I just want to throw it out there.
Thank you. First, we surely can look into it. And it would probably be a decision that would have to be made in conjunction with the treasurer clerk recorder, because it would probably cost. And I'm not sure if it technically, technology-wise, doable. Maybe it is, but we can study it for sure. But it's a good question, because we know that it's a long trip for everyone up here. What would be really nice in my dream world would be that our DMVs across the state are all connected and all. So you could go to Shoto and do your registration, and then they just put it in, and the money or whatever, the technology sends that to Lewis and Clark, and that's, you just registered at another DMV site. Same thing for me, I could go to Shoto or someone from Shoda could come to Helena and do it, you know, there. That would be nice, but it is a state system, so this is a state Department of Justice, and counties are just their agent, so that's all their equipment, it's their computers, their printers, their system, and they are redoing their system now, so we're supposed to have a whole new DMV
Winter
electronic
2025.
system, 20 and 25, which, you know, that could, who knows, that could get pushed out if there are glitches and things, whatever. And I'm not sure the capacity of that system or what it's gonna be able to do, but it is a state system and we are, stuck with their equipment and system, so. But it's worth asking and we can find out if we can, something we could do.
Thank you.
So commissioners, do you have questions?
Yeah,
or
well, I
comments?
just had another comment. Because the Lewis and Clark County license plate is a 5, and Great Falls is, what, a 2? And, I mean, every county has it, so, we're gonna bring this up, you wanna get license plates, we're gonna have license plates from various other counties available. And I can see, the logistics are mind-boggling. I'm sure they'll get somebody who can figure this out with a computer.
They do it in other states though, which is.
Really? Do they have the same numbering?
No, I mean, you're able to do it, plates can come in the mail and
That's
those
right,
kind
you
of
can
things,
order
you
with
get
that,
them.
that's right.
These folks are probably used to getting their plates in the mail and.
That's what I was gonna say, is we can go to Shodo and renew our, Brian Moody, renew our driver's license or whatever.
Yeah.
But we for sure should be able to go over there and register.
Right.
My wife's gone over, stood in line at Helena, and then they said, well, because you're doing more than 2 plates, you gotta stand in line again. You've gotta be kidding me, right?
Yeah, no, thank you. We're working on a lot of that stuff, but it's improving and hopefully this new system will help, but I can't guarantee that, it's not ours. But it is our employees that get all the grief. Yes?
Sue Taylor again, and just in case I should have made this clear, it was a really, I'm not gonna say good experience, but I was there less than an hour.
Good.
And that was a pretty big deal to me, because
Yeah.
I had planned for a lot more, so.
Yeah, it's getting better, they've improved, probably saw we put in 4 new windows. We have new staff hired, we've really been trying to improve the process there. Amy Reeves done a good job, we have, her senior staff, or the person that supervises that program has been really good, dedicated. It is difficult to keep staff, and what's mind-boggling to me is that you're hired on one day, and it's not for 6 weeks almost that you're competent enough, trained enough that the state will allow people to do titles and those kinds of things. So you have to pass all these milestones, and sometimes people don't even last that long, and they get yelled at the windows, and they're like, I'm out here. Then we have to hire somebody new. So it's been a challenge to keep that completely staffed up, but they're doing a great job with what they have and dealing with someone else's system and all of that. So I'm grateful for their work. But thank you very much. We'll try and we'll bring that forward and see if there's a possibility. I don't know.
Great, thank you.
Anything else from anyone? Anything else?
No.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you very much. April 12th is our next meeting. Look forward to seeing everyone here. And with that, we will stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.